Singapore is tightening its work pass requirements for foreigners who want to work in the country. From September 1st, the minimum qualifying salary for employment pass holders will be raised to $4,500 from the current $3,900.
And for the first time, the Manpower Ministry is setting higher qualifying salaries for a specific sector. From December 1st, the new salary criteria for EPs in the financial services sector will be further raised to $5,000 for new applicants. The Monetary Authority of Singapore says it supports the move by MOM as the sector continues to create jobs even during the crisis.
For S-Pass holders, the minimum qualifying salary will be raised from $2,500 from the current $2,400. The new requirement applies from October 1st. There will be no further changes to levies and quotas in this round of updates.
We're pleased to welcome Mr. Ho Meng Kit, Chief Executive of the Singapore Business Federation. Now, Mr. Ho, now that we have more details to the initial announcement yesterday, will these impending changes serve more of a help or a hindrance to businesses, you think?
I would think generally this is not good news for businesses. Though for businesses that are currently not hiring either employment pass holders or S-Pass holders, it will not affect them. And I think most sectors are not hiring. But in the renewal of the existing S-Pass holders, I think this will affect them. And in the situation whereby the companies cannot pass on increased costs to the consumers, so it would mean that there would be increased business costs for those businesses as well. So I think it's generally not so good news, but I can recognize that it is important for government to do this now because the economy is slowing. We are in a recession, and there are many PMETs, locals, which will eventually not be employed. So this clearly is to switch employment, particularly for PMETs, to the local sector. I think it will have that effect of enhancing it. But I caution that we should not go too far. You know, this call to develop a Singapore core, certainly companies should do that, but we should also recognize that it is important for Singapore to have its fair share of foreign manpower because they create jobs. And we really don't want to go enjoy every other country which is becoming more nativist, you know. Then Singapore, there's no difference in Singapore. We're joining all other countries, whether it is Hong Kong or developed economies. I think we punch above our weight. We are differentiated. We can be competitive because, you know, we are a hub. We welcome foreigners. We welcome ideas, and I think we need to improve this connection, especially for post-COVID. So it is all right, I think, at this point in time to ask and urge companies to concentrate and develop the Singapore core. But if the conversation is carried too far without a balance, I think it might affect sentiments, and I think it becomes it will affect our attractiveness for foreign investments. So it's something which we need to tread very, very carefully.
Right. Mr. From businesses with predominantly S-Pass workers to those with more PMETs on employment passes, which sectors will be able to adapt best and worst to these changes?
My general sense is that for those sectors which have a large number of foreign workers, as in the previous few days, we were told by MAS that the financial industry has a large share. So I think those sectors will be more affected because I think the numbers are just larger, and the change will be the change will have to be multiplied amongst many employers within that sector. So that's one. I think also that for those sectors, for example, in the services sector, whereby these EPs are employed in the broad middle, you know, meaning that they are not here because they have special skills, but they are here because they are doing business development work, marketing, general administration. I think in these sectors, then it is easier for them to find replacements in PMET. So for these sectors, maybe in the retail sector, for example, it might be easier for them to switch to hire locals. Now, turning to some other sectors where by technology and keeping pace with the advance ahead of the curve technology, like manufacturing is important, research and R&D is important. I think in this case, it's much harder because these new skills are harder to combine locally. It takes time. So for this sector, I think Singapore companies there will continue to rely on expertise from overseas. So hard to generalize. It depends on the sectors and those factors which I've just mentioned.
Right. Well, something new that was announced today, MOM is setting higher qualifying salaries for the financial services sector, and only for that sector. Why was it singled out for this one?
When the EP was raised to about 4,005, it closely averaged the median salary, because I think the job support scheme was for companies up to 4,006. So there is a sense that for the rest of the sectors, 4,005 represents a sort of the median wage. But I think if you take a slice of the income of those working in the financial sector, I think it is probably true that the income is much higher in the financial sector. So I think their average median age in the wage in the financial sector would be higher. So I think it is logical. It is logical for the financial sector to have a higher qualifying eligibility wage. I think it's also a signal. I think it's also a signal to the financial sector that the current situation is not desirable, and this is also a signal to the financial sector that the government would want the financial sector to take in that responsibility to have a more diversified workforce and to change much faster.
Mr. Ho, just to round up our discussion for today, is there also a chance that raising the minimum wage of EP and S-Pass holders will result in higher business costs without really benefiting locals?
I think the chances are there. So let me say that it's not so straightforward, because the companies might want to hire a local. But in order for a local to agree to take on that job, expectations need to be met. Sometimes wage expectations need to be met, and there is still a gap. Second is that there is a skills and capability gap as well. So that gap needs to be matched as well. So these are not easy issues to deal with. I think you give sufficient time and say, for example, training infrastructure with the existing government grants and incentive for training, I think it will help. But if policy is, if the hike is too steep and companies do not have enough time to adjust, one is that you will find that companies will say, well, I can't find the locals, I just pay the higher cost to get the EP. That will be one outcome. The second, and probably a not so good outcome, is that, look, they will give up. I say, I really, this is too high a cost for me to operate in Singapore. I might as well take my businesses out. So we will lose not just the foreign workers' job, but we will lose the locals' job that's associated with that particular company. Now, we don't want that second scenario. So let's be very careful how we do this. I think the hike cannot be too steep, and I think you must give enough time for companies to adjust, because there is that gap in expectations, in skill level between the local workers and the job they want. We want them to fill for the foreign workers.
Well, Mr. Ho, thank you very much. It was a pleasure and indeed very valuable to have your take on this matter.